Greetings and welcome to What's the Big Deal About Big Data for Marketers? Produced by Data Driven Business Week, online platform providing practical advice and strategic insights. And my name is Jim Sterne. I am the founder of the eMetrics Summit. That was back in 2002. And in 2005, the audience created the Digital Analytics Association. And for the last 20 years, I've been trying to help people make the website experience better for their customers. This webinar is the big broad brushstroke about what is digital analytics, what is big data, how do marketers use it. It is not specifically how do you use a tool, it's a framework for thinking about all of this stuff, which will be useful for you if you're considering getting into the business. It will be useful for you if you've been made responsible for all of this stuff. It will be useful for you if you want a better way of explaining to your colleagues what it is analytics is all about. I'm speaking to the analyst in broad brushstrokes to give you the big picture. And the reason that we care about digital analytics and the reason that big data is interesting for us is it's going to help us make the customer experience better so they'll buy and they will buy more. Because the internet experience is still painful. It's hard to find things. It's hard to compare things. It's hard to buy things. And I want to make that whole experience better because I think the internet has given us the best marketing tool we've ever seen and we're using it badly. So hopefully we can use data to make it better. We have a long history of looking at the data to see that websites are working. Started out with performance monitoring. This is where the engineers who are running the servers are looking to see, is the server big enough to provide for the traffic? If a whole bunch of people show up all at once, can we support that many people? And is the pipe big enough going out to the internet so that, again, the experience is fast enough so you don't click and wait and wait and wait? Then we realized that because this was a classic transaction system, the web server, you ask for a page, it collects up the data it needs and sends it to you, and it records that fact. So a log file contains what computer IP address asked for what page, and on that page we have these graphics and those audio files and this structure, and we send all that out and we record all that. So if something goes wrong, we know the last thing that happened before it all went south. But we realized that we could look through there to determine, gee, this is how many different visits we had. Maybe that's visitors, maybe not. And here's what they looked at. And here's how many pages they looked at. And here's how long they stayed. And suddenly we got really interested in using that data to measure whether or not our website was working. Well, we suddenly exploded the amount of data sources that we're looking at. First of all, we needed cookies. Now, this is something that was from the very beginning. The internet was not intended to be an online transaction system. It was just a way to send messages. So we didn't keep track of who you were, or were you the same person who was here yesterday? And it didn't really work for shopping carts unless we had cookies. So suddenly this little text file that lives on the laptop that identifies you as a random number. We don't know who you are, but we know you're the same person who was here yesterday. We know you looked at these things yesterday, you looked at these things today, and we can guess you're going to look at these things this afternoon. We did packet sniffing, web beacons, and currently page tagging with JavaScript tags seems to be the best we've got so far. We can pack a lot of information about what you're doing in a page tag. But we also have, over on the right side here, the application servers. Are you running product comparison application? Are you running a credit card validation? We can look at all the log files for those tools to see that they're working. How good is our email marketing? Are people opening our emails and responding to them? Are they answering our surveys? Voice of customer. We want to know about customer satisfaction as well as customer behavior. We want to know about whether people can figure out what we're trying to provide them. So usability test them. You put them in a room and you give them a task and you watch them and listen to them as they complain. And even eye tracking. Now, eye tracking, yes, this is a 20-year-old photo. It doesn't look like this medieval torture device anymore. But eye tracking is very useful to actually look at what it is the eye is seeing. Where does the eye move on the screen? Now, by itself, that's very interesting, but it's not very useful. So for useful, we aggregate the information and create this heat map. This shows us that everybody is looking at the menu on the left, that's good. They're all looking at the content in the middle, that's good. They're not really going below the scroll lines, that's informative, and nobody looks at stuff over on the right-hand side, so that can be very useful too. This tells us what people are looking at and when, and we can get down to the XY coordinates of where the mouse is at the moment, right? Is the mouse moving? Is it hovering? Does it identify a drop-down menu and select one thing but not click on it and then go back to something else? Very useful information for trying to figure out whether people are using our websites well or not. So we've taken this data from all these different sources and used it to try to improve our advertising, campaign optimization, improve how we're bidding on search terms, improve how we're gleaning information from the social sphere, optimizing our landing page, etc., etc., etc. So we've got a lot of ways we can use this data to improve getting people's attention, getting them to our website, and getting them to buy our products. In the good old days, as a marketer, I needed to really understand market research, branding, advertising, right? I needed to understand what it took to go out into the world and ask 1,000 people a question and get statistically significant information back. I needed to understand what branding is and raising awareness and increasing customer affinity, etc., etc. looks like. I have to know what my marketing and advertising spend is. I have to be able to really nail pricing from a competitive standpoint and a building margins standpoint. Growing loyalty, growing customer satisfaction. This was the world of marketing, and I had my handful of channels. Today, I have to be a lot more technically savvy to do my job. I have to know basically how the internet works. What is packet switching? This is not something you need to study and get a PhD in, but it's something you need to understand. You have to know how web servers and ad serving networks work and what mobile technology gives you and doesn't give you, and what social media platforms can provide, etc., etc. So the marketing task has gone from being a study in sociology and creativity to sociology, creativity, and technology. Now, on the data side, as a marketer, I needed to be able to understand the market research and know what data I'm looking at for direct marketing, that is direct mail. I'm going to create 5 different customer segments. I'm going to send them different catalogs. I'm going to spend a lot of money on paper and postage, and I want to optimize which catalogs I'm sending to which people. Direct marketing, right? Database marketing. I'm still, was then and is now immersed in demographic information. Where do you live? And how much do you earn? And how many people are there in your household? And what your college education level is? Psychographics. Magazines you subscribe to, groups you belong to, political parties. All the data that I've got in my customer relationship management systems and Salesforce automation systems, and what's going through the call center. That's what I needed to do, to know, to hold on to do my job. And then came the internet. Suddenly, I'm tracking this level of data that is enormous. Every click, every search term, all the stuff that's going on the ad networks, etc., etc., etc. So the term big data, the definition that we've all grown to know and love, is there's a lot of it, volume. There's lots of different kinds of it that we didn't have before, variety, and it's coming at us fast, as in real-time and almost real-time response. Now, we put all this into a data center, and yes, that is a Google data center, and no, we don't know how many they have. But the internet was created because we don't have enough compute power, and we needed to share compute power, right? Because we had too much data. Where did we have too much data? Astrophysics and genetics that were all being done at universities on supercomputers. But those universities realized that they had spare capacity. There were times when those machines weren't being used, and wouldn't it be useful if other universities could make use of those computers when they were not being used? So they created the internet to connect up the supercomputers. That was the laboratory experiment that escaped from the lab and ran out into the world and mutated and took over everything. Big data happened, not because we've never used massive amounts of data before. We have in those fields, but when it came to marketing and when it came to interacting with the public, Google and Yahoo, they had this problem of how do we manage massive amounts of data? And they built something called MapReduce. They map out the problems across parallel processors and distribute and reduce the answers back to the analytics engine in order to crunch the numbers. Now, that's as if everybody listening to this webinar today, I had 1,000 math problems and I spread them all out and you all do 4 or 5 and you all send them back to me and boom, I've got the answer. This turns out to be a fabulous tool for pre-processing unstructured data. What does that mean? Twitter tweets are unstructured data. They are English language, random. We know that this is the person who tweeted and that's how many people are following that and this is how many people retweeted. That's okay, that's structured. But what are people saying is extremely unstructured. It's language. So we can go out and pre-process it and say, oh, well, this many people did retweet that and sentiment analysis says it's positive or negative, and feed it back to the SAS or SPSS or whatever big iron tool we're using in order to do correlation. So this is, when you hear the term big data, yes, it's jumped the shark for hypeness, but the term was born of this MapReduce technology, which, by the way, is now open source. It's called Hadoop. And when you hear somebody talk about big data and Hadoop clusters, they're talking about the technology which got the label big data before the marketing world took it on and labeled everything as big data. Okay, so now you've got the technology. The promise of all this technology has been with us for a long time. The promise is segmenting your audiences enough so that you can treat them sort of individually. And then Peppers and Rogers came out with their one-to-one future book saying, wait, we really need a customer segment of one. You really do need to talk to people one-to-one. And then Seth Godin came along at the end of the century and said, this isn't going to work unless you get people's permission. It's got to be opt-in. And as we've discovered, it has to be pretty fast. It used to be that I would call a company and they would mail me a brochure. Now I go to their website and I find out what they want to say. Tomorrow, I need to go to a website and have them tell me what I want to hear. And that's what one-to-one marketing is about. And if I opt in and identify myself, then I really do get what I want to hear because it's permission-based. This promise started with rules-based stuff, right? Now, rules-based means marketers sat in what we lovingly used to refer to as the smoke-filled room and decided what people would respond to better. So people who come to the website from Yahoo will probably like this offer better. If they come to our website in the afternoon, they'll probably like that offer better. If they've come to our website and they look at this page and that page, then we should show them this thing. And if they do this, we'll send them that email, etc., etc. But this is all humans deciding what should be and how people might respond. It's extremely intuition-based. Then we made the computers start to do stuff. Amazon did this first, rather brilliantly, with people who bought this also bought that. People who cared enough to buy my eMetrics book also bought Web Analytics Demystified, Website Measurement Hacks, Competing on Analytics, etc., etc., etc. This drove lots of sales because humans respond really well to that, as my credit card will attest. So we went from humans deciding the rules to the computer showing what other people had done to the predictive side, the predictive analytics thing. This is where we let the machine find the pattern. So maybe it's people who came from AOL in the evening, are probably senior citizens, so let's show them this, to actually finding what those patterns are. And they're not necessarily logical patterns. People who come to us from, their last website was a sports site. They clicked on an ad on a sporting site and came to our page and they bought cucumbers. Who you would never have guessed that. The machine saw the pattern, figured out that the source was the attribute, then the source and time of day really matched up and really correlated, and found the common link between how people react in order for the marketing systems to then provide the best offer. So the promise is gone from we have to make it up to we'll let the machine show what was to let's predict. And why are we doing this? To make the customer experience better so people will buy and buy more. Okay, that's the preliminary. That's the warm-up for what I really want to cover. I want to cover these 5 areas. In order for us to fulfill the promise of one-to-one marketing and making the web experience better, the customer experience better, the first thing we need to do as marketers is understand the raw material. This is like an artist needing to understand wood, and balsa wood and teak are different materials. Data are different. So let's do a different analogy here. Sources of information. You are a critical thinker. You know that when you get news from the BBC or you get news from the New York Times, it's pretty reliable. You know that when you get news from Wikipedia or data for facts from Wikipedia, it's sort of reliable in a general human kind of way. You can't really cite it because it can change at a moment's notice. You know that when you get news from Fox News that there is a political slant to it. And when you read something on Drudge Report, oh yeah, look out. And when you get it from The Onion, yes, okay, now we know it's actually not true on purpose. But as humans, we have this way of knowing what sources of information are worthy of our attention and to what degree. When we look at data, same thing. Is it trustworthy? As a marketer, I need to know which sources I'm using that go into that dashboard that I'm looking at to know if it is understandable, reliable, consistent, clean. And there's a lot of ways it might not be. People delete their cookies, which always frustrates me. I'm happy to have cookies. I'm happy to have the website recognize me when I get back. And when I asked my mother why she deletes her cookies, she said it was because her grandson told her to. Fair enough. People do it. We also have proxy servers and cache files. And when somebody opens multiple browsers with multiple windows, or they come to us in multiple devices, you can't really keep track of who they are. And now Google has come up with this not provided, so we can't really see the search terms as well. We've got click fraud out in the ad networks. We've got companies paying bloggers to say nice things or to retweet stuff. You need to understand where the data are coming from in order to know how reliable it is. Okay, so I've got lots of touch points. If you look down at the bottom here, we've got lots of ways the customer can communicate with us, and we're collecting data in all of those different silos. And we've got lots of different tools to collect that data in those different silos, which are tuned for that particular spot. So we've got companies that are really good at measuring mobile data. We've got companies that are really good at collecting call center data. And you can do lots of analysis about your email marketing inside ExactTarget, and that's great. But now the trouble is we want to bring all of that data together, extract the data from these silos, transform it into data that can talk to each other, and then load it into some system that can read it all at once. So it's not just apples and oranges, it's all of these different fruits that I need to chop up so they're all compatible and correlatable, and now I can do some serious analysis. Understanding this raw material is the mechanics of it, and that's what's on the left side of Stephen Few's chart here. Collect, clean, transform, integrate, store, report. It's the technology part. Now, you don't need to be the technologist, but you need to work with the technologists. You don't need to be the IT department, but you have to be able to speak with them clearly without speaking in marketing speak. And you need to understand what they're saying to figure out, well, is the problem that they don't have enough equipment? Is the problem that we don't have enough security? Is the problem that we don't have enough clean data? And now we have identified the problem, how can we resolve it? So we have to understand the raw material, and you have to master all of those different tools that are there for all of those different silos. Now by master, this depends on where you live in the organization and how much you enjoy that sort of thing. But you don't have to actually know how to use every tool. You have to understand what every tool is for, and you have to understand and you have to know who the people are who are the masters of the tool so you can get value out of them. So you've got lots of data, lots of raw material. You've got many tools that you can use to manipulate that raw material. Then you need to understand why. So it's diagnosing this problem. It's having the problem to solve. And the problem has to be clearly defined. Are we talking about the same thing? I went to one company and I was told that their most popular report was the HITS report, literally the HITS report. And they saw the look of shock on my face and said, no, it's not actually a HITS report. That's just what we call it by, culturally, that's what people refer to it as, but it's actually page views. And I said, are you sure? Well, yeah, it's the page view report. But is that what everybody understands it to be? And we called the 3 people who consume this report the most often, and one of them said, oh, well, that's the number of visits. And the next one said, oh, well, that's the number of visitors. And the next one said, well, that's the number of pages. And the guy who was sending out the report, did the face, the palm in the forehead thing, not realizing that they didn't have common definitions. A good goal is specific. It's not just we want to raise revenue, but we want to raise revenue by 7% over the next 3 months. And now we've got a serious goal. There's a line in the sand. And it has to be politically correct. It has to be agreed to. If you have a big giant goal that is not really attainable because it's too ambitious for the tools, but somebody on high said, we're going this way, the person who has his hands on the data and has to use the tools to make it work is just not going to invest all of the time and effort into it because it's not worthwhile, and it won't happen. On the other hand, if you have a goal that senior management doesn't agree with, they won't fund it. So it's not going to happen. So everybody has to agree that the goal is worthy. Now in marketing, our goals are let people know who we are, get them to like us, get their influencers to tell them it's a good thing, get them to engage, open their wallet and give us some money, and oh, by the way, tell their friends, right? So these are the goals we're trying to accomplish. Specific outcomes, the proxies for those goals are whether people interact with us on social platforms. Did they comment on our blog? Did they retweet? Did they forward it to friends? And that's good. And for social, that's terrific. But now I need the more engaged, it's not just, isn't that a funny picture, but isn't this interesting and might this not be a valuable tool or a valuable product? Did they click through? How long did they stay on the website? How many pages did they look at? Did they download the white paper? Did they join the conversation on the website? Were they a qualified lead? And oh yeah, by the way, did they buy anything, right? So once you've identified your goals, you need to prioritize them. And this is a 2-step process. First, of all of the projects you're working on, which one is going to raise revenue the most? And then which is going to cut costs the most? And then which is going to increase customer satisfaction the most? Which is going to have the biggest impact on the outcomes that you want? Then the second, so now that you've prioritized those and you've got your 5 main projects you should work on, which should you work on first? The one that's the easiest to accomplish technically, financially, and politically, and will provide the fastest value back to the company. If it's difficult and costly and nobody agrees and it's going to take 5 years, drop it like a hot rock, even though it's the best thing since sliced bread. As John Wanamaker would say, I know that half of my advertising dollar is being wasted. I just don't know which half. So for decades, we've been doing marketing mix modeling. Top down, I've got these 5 buckets of money. I'm going to spend this much on TV and this much on print and this much on radio and this much on direct mail. And what's the result? Now, if I change the model and I mix up the percentages that I'm spending in these different buckets, what does it do to sales? Well, if I do it this way, sales go down. If I do it that way, sales go up. If I do it this way, sales go up a lot. So this is a gross lever that I can use just to move money around. Bottom up, on the other hand, is something that we've come to because we finally have the data to be able to do it. Bottom up is I'm tracking clicks, I'm tracking paths, I'm seeing how people engaged in what sequence, and I'm going to attribute value and attribute success to these different things. So my search gets paid, I'm going to give them a lot more credit than banner ads. But I've got a lot of different models that I can use. So the last click, literally the last thing they did just before they bought. Well, the second one there, if the last thing they did was typing in my URL directly, company.com, then I want to go to the last non-direct click, the last advertising thing they clicked on. Oh, advertising? Well, wait a minute. The advertising department says first click is the most important because if we didn't get them to click once, they never would have bought. So that should get all the credit. Okay, well, let's split the baby. First and last click should get equal credit. Oh, wait, everybody in the middle is so annoyed. Email marketing should get some credit. So, all right, let's just evenly distribute it out over everybody. Well, wait a minute. What if the first click happened 3 years ago? So recency is actually the best indicator. Well, these are what we start with. And the end of the conversation is it's weighted. And weighting happens a number of ways. Weighting happens, first of all, politically. Who carries the most weight? Who is able to say, my budget should be increased because I'm providing the most value, my projects are the best. And then we get to programmatic attribution weighting. We use predictive analytics, we use impulse response functions, whatever, wild ass guess or scientific wild ass guess, whatever works best. The point is you create a model, you test it, and the more valid the model is, the more trustworthy it is, and that's great. Now, these models deteriorate over time because they're dependent on what's happening at the moment, but now you've got a way of addressing how to solve a particular problem of attribution. You understand the raw material. You've mastered the tools for manipulating the data. You have a clear idea in mind of the problems you're trying to solve. And now it's time to get down to the art of analysis. Now, I'm very specific about this word art. This is an intuitive process. This is a creative process. If you look at data as the end-all and be-all, and you should always do what the data tells you to do, you will paint by number. And what's the result of that? You end up with a straightforward representation of the woman's face, no question. But if you let yourself be artistic, you can create a masterpiece. But don't think that an artist ignores math. Math informs art. Math is an element as much as paint and canvas. It is this magic of doing left brain and right brain together. So let me just give you a couple of low-hanging fruit, analysis 101 things to think about. First of all, the most important thing is not the reports that you crank out every day. The important thing is the stuff that goes bump in the night. The most exciting phrase that heralds new discoveries is not eureka, but that's funny. I wonder what that's all about. So the errors or the spikes or the drops or the complaints or something that goes bump, those are the first things you want to look at. What's weird? One of these things is not like the other. What's going on there? Next is segmentation. This needs to be the heart of everything you do. Everybody does not do the same thing. So let's chop them up into groups, and it almost doesn't matter how you divide them up. It could be by gender, it could be by time of day, it could be by length of visit, it could be by location, geography. It almost doesn't matter. As soon as you start dividing people up into cohorts, you can treat them differently, and that will improve your response and your sales, the outcomes. The next thing you want to do is start with the end goal in mind and work backwards. So what is it you want people to have done? Let's look at all of those who did it and try to figure out what they have in common, and then try to find more people like those. And then let's look at the people who almost did what you wanted and see how are they different from the ones who did it, who actually put it in the shopping cart and purchased, or actually downloaded that white paper. And how do we get those people to act like them? Then there's this fun thing of micro conversions. Anybody who's done direct mail knows this one, that you know the only reason that you have an envelope is to design the envelope and that you put language on the envelope and the color and shape of the envelope. The only purpose is to get them to open the darn envelope. And that's a micro conversion. And once they pull out what's inside the envelope, you get them to read that headline. And the purpose of the headline is to get them to read the next sentence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, let's again look at people who didn't do the whole thing. What's the difference between people who looked at the About Us page and did not look at the About Us page? Did it have an impact? And how do we get people to just click one more time and interact with us one more time? Be aware, though, that all is not easy in the land of statistics. Do not use statistics as a drunken man uses lampposts for support rather than for illumination. And this is the problem that as an analyst, we face this all the time. People run in and go, oh, I need to know the answer to this in order to prove that I should get a bigger budget. I need to show that this advertising campaign worked great. I want to prove that the red button is better than the blue button. Show me the data. Is looking for support, and it's a nightmare. We should be looking for insights instead. The other trap that we face is bias, and this is your brain working against you. I'm really going to recommend that you go online and research this a little bit. There's a lot of stuff out there about all the different ways that your brain will trick you into thinking that you've found the right thing, that you're looking for the right thing. So you have to be aware of your biases. Keep your biases front and center so that you can fight against them, so that you can shortcut them. And this is probably the golden rule of all analysis. Correlation does not mean causation. We know that as ice cream sales go up, drownings go up. But that's because of the temperature. We know that the more churches there are in a town, the more cases of alcoholism there is. No religion doesn't drive people to drink. It's about population size. I know that every time I wake up wearing my shoes, I have a horrible headache. So clearly shoes cause headache. Well, no. Actually, the only time that I sleep in my shoes is when I've had too much to drink the night before, and it was the drink that caused the headache and the shoe wearing. And here's one that always just stuns me. 70-year-old smokers live longer than 70-year-old non-smokers. That's a fact. But it's not a cause. If the cigarettes haven't killed you by the time you're 70, you've got great genes, you're going to live a long time. Do not run out and buy a pack of cigarettes. So be careful, because this is a common human failing. Gee, I see more people doing X, and when that happens, I see more of Y happening. Therefore, no, not necessarily. So be very careful about causation. This is the human creative side. This is the explore and analyze and cogitate and try to figure it out side of things. And one of the tools that we use to help us with this is visualization. The human eye can absorb a great deal more information than we can read or feel or hear, just being able to visually look at something. So let's go through a little visual exercise here. My colors are different customer segments. Again, it almost doesn't matter how you segment them out. So they're segments. That's all we need to know. And the size of each one of those bubbles is lifetime value. And we want to optimize for lifetime value, don't we? The money we spend to get a customer, the bigger the lifetime value, the better. So I look at this and I see a bunch of blobs. I'm not really getting any information. The brain goes, yes, so. Well, let's start dividing them up. Let's divide them by size. Okay, what do we see? We see that there are no little red balls. Okay, so we don't, in segment red, we don't have any little lifetime value, small lifetime value. Well, that's interesting. So red is our friend. Okay, that's something, but it's not a lot to go on. Over on the right, we've divided it up by color. I'm learning even less here. I guess the blues have a lot of little ones. Well, what if we divide it up by color and size? Okay, now the brain goes, there's something here I can get. I see patterns. I see something I can dig into. And what I can dig into is making some quick decisions. For instance, the greens, little lifetime value, right? There's a whole bunch of people who have small lifetime value. And by small, I mean, they cost us money. We do advertising to get these people to come in, and they don't buy a lot. So that's not really worth it. The reds, big lifetime value and medium lifetime value, none of those little ones that are soul-sucking. So we want more reds and less greens, right? Okay, great. We've got a beginning. We're going to find more people who are in the big red bubble, more people in the big blue bubble, more people in the big blue or big purple bubbles. Great. Go out and find more people like these. What do they read? What websites do they go to? What events do they go to? And we can sponsor the event. Those green guys, let's get rid of them. The little purples and the little blues, let's get rid of them. Let's do everything we can to not attract those kinds of people because they cost us money. So we've gotten rid of the bad folks. We found great people that we want to go after more. And then we've got this interesting group, the mid-size red people. Well, let's do something with them. Let's figure out a way of turning them into higher value customers. Let's start doing some testing. We will sub-segment them, and we'll go after them with different marketing programs, and we'll do multiple versions to test. And we'll use our 4 marketing tools that we've got: list, offer, medium, creative. The list, well, we're looking at that. We've identified the list. These are the segments we're going to go after. What offers are we going to send out? Buy one, get one free, buy now, get 10% off, buy now, get free shipping, all kinds of offers you can go with. How are we going to reach them? What media are we going to use? Email, banner ads, keyword search, all kinds of ways to go out and direct mail. And then the creative. So we've got the people we're going to go after. We know what offer we want to send. We know we're going to send them email, but is it text only? Are we using red or blue background? What kind of headlines are we going to use? We've got a lot of ways to go chase these people. And all of that is because we took the data and visualized it. Hugely valuable. This is where we take the data scientist, who is somebody who thinks up new algorithms for managing data and manipulating data. We take the marketing executive and we put them together and make a data artist. The data artist understands the raw material, they know how to use the tools, they understand the problem to be solved, and they get in there and they create. The data artist understands the technology, understands the math. Now, again, doesn't have to be a PhD in statistics, but has to understand the math well enough to know when they say, well, this is not statistically significant, to know what that means instead of having to have that conversation again. And they have to know what the business goals are and how the business works and what the business politics are. They have to be intelligent enough to be able to talk to all three of those groups, the IT, the statisticians, the business people, the marketing folks, and translate between them. They have to be a natural problem solver. You know, the one that likes Sudoku puzzles and detective novels. And they have to be intuitive. They have to have that way of looking at one thing and seeing another. So to become a data artist, you need to read the books and read the blogs and go to the conferences and the webinars, thank you very much, and fill your head with knowledge so that the intelligence has something to work with. It's a body of knowledge that then you apply your intelligence to, and you can help improve your intelligence through practice and crossword puzzles and exercises, you know, like the Luminosity website, brain exercises. But the intuition is interesting. This is, you have to take a step back. You have to take a deep breath. This is the brain working in a unique way of putting all the pieces together, which is why an idea occurs to you in the shower. It's why when you're on vacation, suddenly you get it. It's why you should always sleep on a big problem, because the brain then has a chance to settle down and relax and back away from email and Twitter and put one and one together and come up with more than two. That's what the data artist does. The data artist is articulate in order to communicate these insights out. They are abstract thinkers. They recognize patterns. They have the ability to look at one thing and see another. They have a way of bringing together disparate information in order to create something new, and they're passionate about their insights. They don't love reporting. They love filtering and pondering and comparing and grouping things and seeing what might be there. It's not, I have the answer and I'm going to go make the data prove it. It's, I don't know. And I'm going to go find out. I'm going to go explore. I'm going to get rid of my biases, and I'm going to get rid of my preconceived notions, and I'm going to go out and create something new. Now, our last part is of critical importance. If you have mastered the data and the tools and the problem and the analysis, and you have come up with an amazing insight, and you don't tell anybody, or you don't tell anybody effectively, then it was all for naught. Communication is going to help us get management buy-in. We're going to take these success stories and bump them up, filter them upstairs. We're going to find people in the organization who understand the value of analysis and want to use it to succeed. And we're going to engage people with getting them excited about testing. Get them excited about trying things and looking at the results and learning. The analyst tells stories instead of just deliver charts and graphs. The human mind was designed to learn by storytelling. Once upon a time engages everybody. If you show me a chart or a graph and a spreadsheet, you have made me responsible for the data. But if you tell me a story, I can understand that there is a protagonist, there is a goal, there is a challenge, there is a resolution, and there's a moral to the story, and we've all learned something. And oh, by the way, I have the data to back it up. Don't make me responsible for the numbers. Tell me what you have intuited from the numbers, and I'll compare that against my gut feeling and go, well, my gut feeling says I'm not sure, but the data says, yes, it's true. Therefore, I'm willing to take a risk and do a test. But don't go into gruesome detail and tell me how the sausage was made. Analysts have had to create their own language And when you use that language outside of the laboratory, you annoy people. You make people feel stupid, and people don't like to feel stupid. So don't get involved in all of that. Don't tell me how hard your job is. My job's hard too. Tie your intuition and the data to the bottom line. You want to explain how you figured out a way to make more or spend less or make customers happier. The data suggests here's what we can do. But then for extra credit points, figure out who your audience is. What is important to the individual that you're talking to at the moment? Are they interested in growing their staff and their budget? Do they want a bigger challenge? Do they want to take over somebody else's department? Do they just want to be left alone? I mean, this is a legitimate goal. Not me personally, but some people just want to go to the office and get their job done and go home because they have, their life is all about their avocation, not their job. Well, great. Show them how your intuition can help them be left alone and they can go home at 5 o'clock. But above all, when you tell stories, you leave off the details, you tie it to the bottom lines, and you show them how to achieve their goals. The most important thing here is to have an opinion. The tactics of the job of an analyst is to collect and manage and manipulate the data. But the output is an opinion, an insight, and be specific. I believe that we can improve sales by 10% over the next 3 months if we spend this many $1,000s in this area, I think, and I have a way to test it, which will only cost several $100s. Anybody who goes to a manager with that statement wins. Gold will be sprinkled upon them. We can solve a problem that we think is caused by this, and we might be able to fix it this way in this time, and we can test it. Any manager in their right mind would say, thank you. Except for some of them who say, oh really? Show me the numbers. And then they get all frustrated because they think it's bean counting. They think it's specific. I want to know exactly how many people came to our website from that advertising campaign. Sorry, we can't. We have cookie deletion and proxy servers and a plethora of problems that make the data messy. Get used to it. It's just like television and newspaper advertising and direct mail. It's messy. It's fuzzy numbers. Once people get used to fuzzy numbers and that you are dealing with probability and statistics and projections and not accounting, suddenly you'll be able to communicate with them better and you'll get more buy-in. So, what did we learn? Big data is simply more data than you're used to, except for that map, reduce, Hadoop thing, the technical side, which is actually very interesting and very valuable, but it's a narrow area. You have to have very clear agreed to goals or the analysis is just wasting time. You must be creative. You have to figure out ways of engaging your inner child to be as creative as you can. You have to communicate out to everybody clearly. You have to get very comfortable with fuzzy numbers, and for reasons I don't understand, you need to put fuzzy animals into your PowerPoints. This is proven true. Not sure why it is, but throw in a little kitten there every now and then, keep them awake. But most of all, have an opinion. This is the most important part of all. This is the output of your job. It's not a chart, it's not a graph, it's not a report, it's your intuition. You'll become a trusted, valued, effective member of the team. You will improve the organization. You'll help them make the customer experience better so they will buy and they will buy more and you will become indispensable. That's what I want you to do. I want you to master the data and master the tools and master communication so that the analysis that you do can be put to use and the company can become more effective at what they're trying to do, you will become indispensable. Here are some resources for you to help you become indispensable. Data Driven Business Week is a content website. We invite you to come and read and comment, and if you've got something you'd like to post, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you. Come to the eMetrics Summit. The eMetrics Summit, the next one, is coming up in Boston at the end of September. Take a look at eMetrics.org to see all the cities we're in. And Digital Analytics Association. Come to the Digital Analytics Association.org website. Learn how you can participate on committees, setting standards, doing research, providing education, and being certified as a certified web analyst. And most of all, networking and meeting other people like you. I hope you found this useful. Please feel free to email me at jsterne@targeting.com, or just go to eMetrics.org. You can find me there. Do let me know what else you'd like to find out. I'm delighted to do more webinars in the future. Thanks for joining us.